Welcome to Directly Correct, a People Next podcast with Cole and Scott. Today's guest, Anthony Onesto, Chief People Officer at Suzy.
Thanks to our sponsors, Orgnostic. Fast track the insights behind your people data using Orgnostic by connecting all your HR data in one people analytics platform. Quickly uncover the insights you need to measure the success of your people initiatives. Orgnostic is the most innovative people analytics, generative AI, data orchestration, and employee listening tool on the market. To learn more, book a demo at orgnostic.com/directionally correct. I'm kind of falling out of love with college sports in general just because the transfer portal and NIL and Louisiana Tech just can't compete.
No.
It makes it unfun.
There's going to be a bifurcation of teams, really, like the haves and the have-nots.
I think it's going to be like 6 teams that are like incredibly rich, and then there's going to be like a second tier of like traditional like top 25 schools other than those 6, and then there's just going to be everybody else is just going to be a wasteland, and it's it's depressing. I mean, this won't make the cut for the podcast, but like Louisiana Tech's top receiver, they were going to try to keep him, and I think he's going to Oregon. He's getting $400,000 to go to Oregon with NIL money. And Louisiana Tech, we'd love to keep you. It's like, well, too fucking bad.
We don't pay our coach that.
Yeah. And it's like, well, you can't compete. Like, I don't know. And the kid's only like a redshirt freshman or redshirt sophomore or something. So he's still relatively young. And it's like, is any talented player ever going to graduate from Louisiana Tech ever again? And that really bums me out.
I mean, this is what the Yankees were accused of forever in baseball. The Yankees and the Red Sox, where they would just use the other teams as their farm system.
Yep.
Amass the best roster and, go win championships.
Yeah. I mean, if you can do it, I mean, I don't blame you, but that doesn't mean I have to like the sport.
No, and from what I understand, the boosters in this, they understand that it's unsustainable as well. And they're going to install a system where it's like, okay, we're going to have a cap, or like it's like a fund in general. But of course, like Louisiana Tech doesn't have the donors to do.
No. And the thing is, Tech always punched above their weight. I mean, if you look over like the last 10 to 15 years, they've had just as many draft picks as like a lot of Power 5 programs from like football and everything. It's just, it's a recruiting hotbed, really talented area, and we were always able to get a few of those kids that like didn't go to like LSU or like Bama or something like that. But those days are gone. Like it's never going to happen again.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do a little plug for Louisiana Tech. It's like a great place to go to school. I mean, a lot of people kind of shit on it for like, oh, it's a small town. There's nothing to do. It's like, that's the best part.
See, I would argue no one shits on it because no one knows it exists.
Oh, I'm talking about people that went there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's awful. I mean, I went to undergrad there, went to grad school there. I loved it. My family, I mean, between my wife and I think we have 11 relatives that have graduated from there. So like we're Louisiana Tech people through and through. It's going to be hard to like make me like not support the school, but I'm definitely college sports is kind of waning in my mind.
Well, I mean, you got to start your own NIL fund, the Cole Napper NIL
it's not gonna
fund.
Make a difference. Not even a little bit.
You can offer them free podcast slots.
Like, yeah.
You want a free nerdery sponsorship there?
Free nerdery. Yeah. If that has any value. What's up, Anthony?
Hi. Hello.
There we go.
When you do your own videos and stuff now too, don't you?
Yeah, well, I do it via Zoom, which is not the best. Someone has advised me to use my cell phone and some other things, but I do it on Zoom. I just record it.
Wait, what are you talking about? What kind of videos?
Just what I call like quick bursts. I call it burn the box. I do pontificate about something I'm interested in that week or I wrote about. I do a blog post on LinkedIn on a newsletter, and then I take that blog post, make it a video, and then I export that audio into a podcast. So I try to do one piece of content that then has multiple purposes.
Oh, burn the box. Is it burnthebox.com?
No, we have no website. It's just on the I guess Apple podcast you'll find. It's about 5 to 10 minutes, super quick bursts, and just me pontificating, no guests.
Yeah.
So all you
Well,
get is
that's
me.
the thing that's so impressive to me is like your throughput is like, I don't know how you do it, but like being a chief people officer, and I feel like you're always putting out new articles and new videos and stuff, and it's very impressive.
Well, that's kind of you to say. I take, most of my kids are teenagers, so they don't want to hang out with me. So I have something itching on my brain.
You got plenty of time on your hands.
Yeah, I got plenty of time. No one wants to hang out with me. I'm all by myself. And I do on Saturday mornings. I'm like, whatever was itching on my brain that week, I throw it into a blog post. And listen, I get help from ChatGPT and other things. So it's not just me. But then I take that and that inspires me to then just talk about the video for 10 minutes, whatever the podcast is. And I try to bring a different, lens to it. I don't read it verbatim, and then it's easy, just export the audio. So it feels like a lot, but
Well, what are some of these hot takes you got there?
well, today it's all about AI, right? It's that seems to be it's what's on my mind, but also very relevant. So a lot of it is trying to think of not only the sort of here are like chat GPT prompt things, like, yeah, everyone's doing
Yeah.
that, but it's more about like, how is this really going to impact HR organizations trying to, I did one specifically about not AI, but how that chat experience, because AI has been around for such a long time. Sorry, let me mute this.
Succession.
Oh, of course. It's the greatest phone tone ever created, and show, by the way. The tone is much more interesting. No, I'm kidding. So where was I before I was rudely interrupted? So yeah,
Chatbots,
it's
the AIs
AI.
everywhere. Yeah.
So I took an approach to say, actually, the chat experience is far more interesting, right? That's going to change how we interact with software. So try to take those things, or the fact that if we add AI into our workflows, like the organization is going to change, like cloud. Like I remember when I was with Fresh Direct, in the HR department, we were shunned to the basement at Fresh Direct, and we sat next to the IT room. And so I remember, like, we had server farms of IT stuff. This is going back in 2001, 2002. Those don't exist anymore. There's no, like, IT's in the cloud now. That dramatically changed how organizations structured. I feel like the same thing's going to happen with AI. So sorry, long-winded, but
Well, I kind of want to pick. You said that you use AI to kind of help you with some of the content generation. Does it ever feel like cheating? Like, I think about this sometimes. I want to use it. It's stupid not to use it, but there's still this like part of my brain where I'm like, is this cheating? Like, I don't know. Do
I
you
said
ever come
something.
across that?
I was on a podcast yesterday, and I said something, and it kind of resonated with the audience. It's like, we never, if we do our work, we don't give the MacBook credit like, we never
Yeah.
even think about, like, oh, I should give my MacBook credit for helping me do my work. It's a tool, right? Like it. So yes, I do at the very beginning, because what I was doing was like, hey, help me write this. Now it's not that. It's more of, help me research this, find me data on these things, and then clean, kid born in Brooklyn, New York kid, like, clean up all the poor grammar and
Yeah.
all the hours I slept in English class. Can you help clean all that stuff up? But so I don't feel so, but I also don't feel like I should give it credit either. It's a tool that I'm using. I don't give Grammarly, although I do in podcasts. I do give Grammarly credit, but not overtly.
I'll be the
So
first to say big ups to the MacBook. I love my MacBook. It's fantastic. It helps me through life.
I'm not throwing shade on the MacBook. I love MacBooks. I'm just saying, you never give it credit. Like, oh, I did this work thanks to my MacBook. So
Thank you, Steve Jobs, for coming up with this idea of a MacBook.
right.
It's like a middle ground, because like I'll use ChatGPT and like spit out a paragraph, but what I see is like it's not my voice, right? It's not how I would phrase things, and perhaps because it's like using proper English and grammar and this sort of thing in the
Right,
end.
right.
But
Wait, there's
then you
no
got to
New
go in and
York. there's no New York English in that, like
I'm sure you
yeah.
could get it to write in New York English, but it would be somewhat funny too.
Right,
I
right.
don't-
Well, I think
Hey,
I put in, I had it prompt with all my content that I previous to AI that I've published years ago. So it kind of sounds, but you're an editor now. That's the way I
yeah.
look at it. Instead of me like creating content from, and I think that's why I think people are talking about this, saying it's going to take over. I think like that creative ability to mix, like Billy Joel getting music sent to his mind in the middle of the night. That's like, you're never going to replace that. So I think there's still a world here, but anyway.
Well, is that rewarding to be just an editor? I mean, does it feel good? Back to Cole's original point.
Yeah, I haven't then doing an original. It hasn't, it's a good question. I haven't, it hasn't been in front of my mind to think, oh, you originally wrote that piece
Yeah.
and this one was assisted by AI, and having some sort of level of creative depression around that. No, I haven't felt that at all.
One of the things that I like during the period of time between when I originally thought about having you on and today, you've covered like 15 different AI topics. I'll be like, ooh, it'd be so cool to talk to Anthony about this. But rather than try to like dig in through some of the stuff that you've talked about before, what's on your mind right now? Like, what's the hot thing that you're going through? Because I feel like you have a really progressive perspective when it comes to this, especially with the lens of like how AI is going to impact HR.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and I was somewhat disappointed. I mean, obviously, Chat OpenAI has a whole bunch of other things happening there. We don't
Yeah,
necessarily have to re-dive into that, but
no, we
what
don't.
I was really excited about, because a lot of folks on social and Reddit and other places were specifically talking about that November 6th event where Sam stood up and announced a bunch of things, and they talked about this idea of the autonomous agent. That is what I am obsessed with this, because I think at the core, and I'm not by any means an AI expert. It's so funny. I was on with a podcast recently, and there was literally a PhD in, I think it was data science, and they called me the AI expert, and I immediately called them out and said, no, 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 you can't do that to me when there's a PhD in data science next to me. But for me, it's the autonomous agents that gets me excited, and I think of so much potential, and I don't know it enough to really understand what's not available, but I think of the potential of putting something into a chat. I'll give you an example of where I'm thinking about this. So, recruiting. So, right now, the way recruiting operates is you have a bunch of sorcerers and you have recruiters, and they go out and they scrape LinkedIn and they look for talent based on a predefined set of rules, which is called the job description. How imperfect that may be, that's kind of how it works. They go out, they search, they do Boolean searches, they looked at LinkedIn, they network, they try to find the individual, then they reach out to the individual. Hey, are you interested? Do a pitch, whatever it is, and the person says yes, and then you're in the interview process, right? Then you're meeting with them, and that's where the autonomous, think about it, I can essentially do that in a chat experience. If this autonomous agent thing comes to fruition, where I can say, here's my job description, I'm looking for a software engineer, go scrape everything, and probably even faster, quicker, better, Lee Majors, $1 million,
Mm.
like faster, quicker, better than sorcerers can do, interact with that individual, pitch them Suzy, which is the company I work for, my day job, then have them go into a recruiting process where a live human will then reach out to them, and then you can interact. Now, I would argue that could you do the full cycle recruiting? Yes, you probably can, but we're ways away from that piece. But think about that possibility now. And then when I think about these things, I then think about everyone doing that. So now you have all these autonomous agents going out. So it's going to be this really interesting place. But wow, can you imagine being able to do that? And next thing you know, you have 6 people that are interested in your role, and you had no human interaction whatsoever with that. Like, to me, that's amazing, right? Again, it's amazing in silo where it's only available to me, but that's where I'm excited about this autonomous agent thing.
Your competitive advantage right there, right? You get to have the autonomy. Like, what happens in a world where a candidate has Chat GPT agent create their resume or whatever they put on LinkedIn, that is then reviewed by an autonomous agent. Then you got this like handshake of AI. It's a wild world, right?
It is, right. You're kind of getting into the Brad Smith, like every tool is a weapon and an advantage, right? So you're right. Like that's why I think there was a book written years ago called Race Against the Machine. So years ago, I think it was about 10 or 12 years ago, maybe even more, IBM Watson went up against Ken Jennings in Jeopardy and won. And everyone
Mm.
flipped out. They're like, okay, the machines are going to take over. And these two MIT economic professors said, hold on, let's take a look at this. And they wrote a book. So I think you're always going to have an element of human involved in this. Now, is it going to be messy and are you going to get false positives? Absolutely. Like people
Well,
are
so are
going to use
humans,
this.
right?
Yeah. I think humans, if you think about, like someone brought up the idea of a professor grading papers. So, at the 10th paper, probably awesome. 11th, slightly less awesome. 21st paper, I just want to go home and watch Netflix at that point, right? Like as good as a professor you are in grading papers, right? So same thing with resumes. Like that recruit is really good up to a point. AI probably a little bit better over time, and no breaks. You can have this thing on. So I think there's going to be opportunities, but it's going to be a very interesting time. Now take that autonomous agent and apply that to pretty much every HR task every HR person hates to do
Mm.
that's manual, and see that there's incredible opportunity then to finally transform that HR function into hopefully more strategic element. So there's the promise is greater than probably the reality is going to be, especially in my head, but we'll see.
I've heard of these like personal AI assistants for particularly like executives. So if they were to train an AI agent on some sort of decision, and perhaps it could come with like 98% accuracy, consistency with what the actual human would do. Imagine if like something breaks in Japan or China overnight, you don't have to wake up the executive. They can just send in the AI executive, and he'll make a decision that's 98% on target with what would be made otherwise. Hopefully, we can have this for. I would love that, right?
Yeah, I mean, John Connor didn't love it. Of course, Skynet reference there. So you have to. John Connor thought something completely different, but yes, I mean, I think with guardrails, it just the I want people to open the imagination. Like I
Yeah.
think the challenge, and I did a session this week where most of the audience was CHROs, and they were really silent in the session. Maybe I was just completely
Mm-hmm.
boring and they weren't interested, but I think there's this inherent fear of like jumping into this, and most HR folks aren't early adopters. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's just so much that you can think about with these technologies, far from just the language models that we're seeing today,
Yeah.
and that's what
Yeah.
really I'm excited about.
Well, tell me this. One of the things that I experience with AI, and a lot of people just call this hype, but what I would say is it's some people talking about things that will exist as if they currently exist, but they're actually things that don't exist yet. What do you think the gap is specifically with these autonomous agents between what exists today with AI and what's going to have to change to make them come into being a reality in like to make that happen?
Yeah, I think it's a great nudge, and I will say I'm going to give you the non-technical answer on this on what I think, right? So I think most systems, it's interesting how people are talking about hype, right? The internet happened. That was hype to a certain degree. And I was part of companies that closed during the dot-com boom and bust. So we're seeing the same kind of thing. I think this is actually going to be more prolific and more powerful than the internet. It's the ability to connect, the ability at a very basic level to say, I need this, and then thinking through the steps of that need and what needs to be true for that to go out and have an end result that I'm expecting. So I
So it's
think
like systems
initially,
thinking and process engineering is going to be necessary.
I think so, or within the technology. I think it's like an intern in most. I heard that, and I thought that was a really good metaphor. So, an intern, you're going to say, "Hey, go do this," and they're going to come back, and you're like, "You obviously, I wouldn't promote saying this, but this is garbage. Like, do this differently, or do." I think it's going to be the same thing where it's like, "Hey, I want that software engineer," and they're going to go to something and you're like, what? And then you're going to have to revise and say, no, connect to LinkedIn or go to GitHub or do this. So I don't, I think the power of these things, and I had talked about this before, is if you've ever put together a GPT, you're having a conversation with software, which is, I think, that's the revolution here. Like we were
Mm.
point and click for
Yeah.
so long, and
Most
now
people
we're
haven't ever done that.
conversing. We don't need to be coding. I don't have to go. I highly suggest folks do it because it's so fascinating to me that I can create a piece of technology with a conversation. So for me, I think I don't think you necessarily have maybe the mindset of like, okay, this needs to happen for this and this is the sequence. But my feeling is that I'm going to put an outcome in there and the system is going to have all this data of how people do these things and come back to me and say, okay, this is what I deem to be step one, step two. And I think it's God mode is one of the things where you can, it kind of does this, but doesn't actually go out and do anything. It just tells you, this is what I would do next. And this is what I would do next. So I think that's kind of where we are today. Where we should be, where the gaps are, is like then it actually going out and doing those things and then coming back and reporting. I think that's not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, like resume grading, ML algorithms have been around for 5, 10 years now, where they'll come back, like, especially for like high volume jobs, say like call center workers, something like that. They'll come back with like a green, yellow, red sort of grading. The next step is to just go out and say scrape all of LinkedIn, find everyone out there that might have these sort of things.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you see systems like Eightfold and other systems that are doing some of that. And I think LinkedIn is probably going to get smart about these things. And yeah, and I think they have, where they're like, hey, you're pinging us a lot. Stop pinging us, right? So there
Mm-hmm.
are limitations to those kind of systems in the places where LinkedIn is going to realize the social network is not the interesting part. It's the data that they hold. And I think they are, with Microsoft behind them, doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, this has been, and we're already seeing in New York, there's a law where you have to disclose some. If you are using
Yeah.
AI to make decisions around recruiting, you have to disclose it. And there's a great, Kathy O'Neill wrote a great book, Weapons of Math Destruction, in that sort of Brad Smith, this could be a weapon. I see that in recruiting. If you're putting in inputs and you're hiring white males constantly, that's the result you're going to get. So you have to figure out how to check these things. And that's why I always feel like that human loop is going to be a powerful piece. Like, why are we only seeing this? And we need to change that. And the question is, typically you'd have to go to an engineer to say, hey, change the algorithm. Where I think now, with the way the interfaces are working, you can just train the algorithm. You're going to be able to say,
Mm-hmm.
please refrain or look for this particular ethnicity, or I'm seeing too many of this. And then the system will get trained on that. And then the next output hopefully will have that human input in it. Or you click no and it'll learn. But
Yeah, I guess the idea of like reinforcement learning, and just because the computer or whatever algorithm can optimize for some sort of outcome, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for everybody on the back end. Like they
right.
talk about, like, hey, we want to eradicate cancer from the human species. Like, well, we're going to kill all the humans. That's it. There you go.
Right. Right.
Cancer's done.
That's not a good outcome, right? Yeah, yeah. We have to prompt that a little bit different. I mean, you saw it, like there was a recent article. United Healthcare was using AI to deny certain claims. I don't want to get too specific because I don't want to misquote it, but you can see it sort of without. And then the question is like what we're talking about now, and some of the open AI and Q Star or whatever the
Yeah,
Q
yeah.
thing that they were
Whatever
working
the
on is
rumor is.
whatever that rumor is. It's like maybe what they're afraid of is that it is smart enough to do that loop, right? So it can learn and it's looping, and I don't know, but I side with the MIT professors on this, that it's not the machines, it's not humans, it's the combination of the two that are going to be the most powerful. And I'm pretty confident about that. Again, who knows
Yeah.
10 years from now, but
Well, it sounds like you're experimenting with some pretty cool AI stuff, on your team at work. This is we talk about people analytics a lot on here. Are you doing anything special with people analytics?
yes. So we just started to work with a tool you might be familiar with called Orgnostic. You might be familiar with those folks over there. Um, I'm really excited about this, and now it's not particularly AI. The ability to where this, I mean, historically, just getting people analytics out of systems has been difficult, and it's now becoming more difficult because before it was more of a user and I would think a technology gap. Now it's these same systems are going, oh, actually, our real oil is the data, and so we're gonna start hoarding that. So now it's hard, it's difficult to work with these systems because you're like, hey, give me all my data and I want to put it into a system like Orgnostic. But my excitement here is the ability to get everything in one place, all our data in a place where I'm in a small company. I don't have an analyst. I don't have access to really smart data scientists that want to focus on people analytics because they're too busy focusing on the business side. I'm always a tertiary priority. It's been in HR forever in terms of IT and all, our business reporting. So how can I turnkey something that allows me to bring everything into a system and that also has some AI capabilities built in? I know Orgnostic has a chat experience that we're testing now. We only have one piece of our data in the system, but we're now working on our recruiting data. We have our performance in there, our HR system. Now, to me, that chat interface with analytics, and I've said this actually in one of my Burn the Box posts, is the idea of interacting with analytics in a conversational way. What's my head count?
Yeah.
What's my turnover in sales? What is my turnover of my high performers? Like anytime you go into a dashboard, you're going in with a question. So why are you getting a dashboard? You're
Mhm.
asking a question you should get. Now it could be an answer with a dashboard or a chart, a la or agnostics AI tool, which I'm playing with and I'm loving. It's that ability. So for me, that's the first phase of this. The second phase is, okay, how can I get things nudged towards me? Like, hey, did you know that all your high performers come from this source of hire? Or, your low performers, whatever. Like, there's going to be so many interesting things, but we're at the very first stage of that. But I'm really excited being able to get it all in one system and then start looking at these things and also have a system that can maybe is smart enough to be that HR people analyst that I can't afford, that I can't have. So I'm excited about some of that stuff. And then we're also doing some workflow things with some AI tools. We're working with Atlassian. So they just launched their Atlassian intelligence agent. We're a small company, but we're very, very data security focused. So we're SOC 2 ISO. So where many years ago something would come out and I'd be like, oh, let's do it. And we'd be able to play with it. Can't do that anymore. They got to go through security review and all this sort of, and I totally appreciate that. But it makes it harder to experiment with things. Atlassian launched their thing. They're approved security wise. The idea there is that if someone asks a question, it can actually look at all our data in Confluence, all our knowledge, and answer that question to the best of its ability, removing all these common questions we have. And that's actually something I explored with my own startup. I tried to do a side startup called K.AI, which would do that same thing. You can upload your documents and it can answer HR questions for you. But we were way before ChatGPT and it was really freaking hard. So when we stopped, it was too hard, especially as a side gig.
Well, that in itself is autonomous AI agents, right? Like it's feeding you information or giving you nudges to keep you out of trouble. I mean, the overall goal for everything people analytics is to just enable better decision making. And we see it in, like, say your credit card balance is too high. I mean, that's a little nudge to you to, like, look out. Or whatever else is going to be. I think that the future is already here. Like to Cole's earlier point, there's like several horizons of AI, and where we are and where we're going to be is just like absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost like,
I don't think anyone
the
enjoyed that
AI.
point.
It's almost like the AI you see in things like sci-fi, like Star Wars. I don't know. Are you a Star Wars fan, Anthony?
I am a Star Wars fan. Yeah, big fan since I was a kid. My aunt actually worked at Toys R Us, and whenever there would be a new Star Wars thing that would launch, and I'm old enough to say that the original Star Wars is when I was growing up. She would put it to the side, and so I have this Star Wars collection.
Oh my god.
I would go back in time and say, "Little Anthony, keep it in the box. Keep it in the box." He'll look at me and go, "What the heck are you talking about?" I'll be like, "Trust me, keep it in the box." But yeah, I was. I'm a big Star Wars fan.
So you're a
That's no fun. You
millionaire
can't
with
you can't play with
collectibles.
that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Not a millionaire at all. It's probably worth nothing now because Luke's arm is off. And
Oh, okay. I thought
Vader's
you kept it in the
helmet is.
box in mint condition.
No, that's what I would go back in time and tell myself, keep it in the box.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, I had a big Star Wars fan, and then all the adjacent properties that they're coming out with. I think Dave Filoni is a genius, by the way, and glad to see I think he's chief creative officer or something at Lucasfilm. So
Do you relate to any of the characters specifically?
I always, it's thanks for that question. I always wanted to be a Jedi. I mean, to
Yeah.
just
Who
I
doesn't?
think
Who doesn't?
it's
The
cool, like
Sith.
magical power stuff, but it's also like there's a kind of a laziness and like, can I go grab that piece of fruit and bring it to me without having to get up?
This is the autonomous agent going and getting that fruit for you.
Yeah, maybe that's why I'm so hyper about the autonomous agent stuff. But I just like, and I also love the principles of the religion, right? To a degree. I mean, you could dive deep into the flaws and all that sort of stuff, but just the peacekeeping element of it, again, arguably. If in the story arc, but I kind of loved, and then of course the lightsaber. I was always, kind of obsessed with sword fighting and things like that, and I never did any of that in my younger years, but I was always interested. So it's that whole the robes, the
Oh
intelligence,
yeah.
the wisdom, all that sort of stuff. I always felt like I was on the light side.
I'm trying to figure out who Cole would be. I'm not sure.
Whatever Jabba the Hutt. Maybe that's
You want
who I'll
Jabba? That's pretty good.
Jabba the Hutt. Okay.
be.
Bound,
You know, like, taking laziness to the next level.
You're a
He's got his little,
gangster.
he's got his little minion, little guy on his shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're a
That's funny.
gangster. You're a gangster. Okay.
Nobody's ever accused me of that before, I promise. Well, one of the things that to me is really impressive about you, Anthony, is not just the work you're doing with AI or being a chief people officer, which I think is like a feat unto itself because that's a really tough job, but you're also doing things outside of the work. Like you told me you work with the Dave Thomas Foundation. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, sure. So I'm adopted by birth. I found that out just to go super personal. I think I was very young, and I was talking to my parents. My parents are Italian American, so they have very little patience with a lot of things. And so I was talking to my mom about Christmas gifts and kind of just blurted out of nowhere that you're adopted, and I was like, what? And so, but it
Merry
never
Christmas.
from yeah, Merry Christmas. So from that period on, I never really gave it a second thought. I really didn't. I just, my parents, my adopted parents were my parents. I'd known and nothing different until a good friend of mine died of a heart attack. And I said, you know what? I really what is going on with me? I should probably really understand my health, my family history. And at the same time, I was thinking of this, and these things happen. Governor Cuomo unsealed adoption records. So in New York,
Oh, wow.
all of that was sealed. So at the same time, it was right before COVID. You'd be able to submit to get your original birth certificate. So this would unlock who my parents were. So I submitted for it. COVID happens. Next thing you know, government, COVID, things weren't turning around as quickly as I'd like them to be. So a year or so later, in the meantime, I did 23andMe. So I did that, which became available, which is great. Ancestry, DNA started. Okay, here I get a good sense of my background, where I'm from. I found out I am 60-70% Italian and Hungarian, which was very unique. So I found that out, and then I got my birth certificate. So anyway, during this period, I also said, how can I? People have gone through this. Like, how can I tell my story? I became very public about being adopted. And I connected to the CEO of the Dave Thomas Foundation. And I said, listen, I can donate, but I can also help you. Are you thinking of like HR related things? I can help. I wanted to give sweat equity. And she was like, absolutely. We had a bunch of phone calls. And, on a regular basis, I would say twice a year, I'm having conversations with her because the Dave Thomas Foundation, that isn't only the Wendy's thing that you donate or you get a free Frosty. It is that. But what they do is they operationalize facilitating adoptions for kids in foster homes. So not my position at all. I was birthed into my adopted house. These kids are in foster homes. They're, moving from foster care to foster care. You probably heard stories where they like bring garbage bags like that because they don't have suitcases. So what Dave Thomas is, they're trying to do almost a recruiting type of thing. This is where AI, I think, becomes really interesting, is connecting foster homes or permanent homes to these foster kids. And so they have people on the ground in these different regions doing those kind of things. So they're almost acting like recruiters. So we took a recruiter lens to that. And so I help out with a lot of those things. So yeah, that's my adoption journey still. My father was not on the birth certificate, so I don't know who that is. Still trying to figure that piece of that equation out. And a lot of 23andMe has been helpful. I connected with my birth sister who had passed away, her daughter through 23andMe, and we had a great conversation. She had lived with my mother, my birth mother. So it was just really interesting to sort of explore all of these things. So Lifetime movie coming out in a year or so about all of this. So,
I assume that's a joke, but it would be cool if there was.
No. Well, I tried. I went to Dave Thomas. I said we should probably I started recording and journaling. So I actually posted something on their blog about my journey. So maybe there could be something content wise. I also reached out. It's funny. I reached out to 23andMe. I'm like, this would be a really great story because I imagine a lot of the folks on your platform are folks like me trying to discover their ancestry, not necessarily confirm it. And I hadn't heard back from the CEO. But anyway, yeah, maybe.
Did you have any trepidation going in this process? Like maybe it's best not to know, or even like meeting these people?
I think given the circumstances, yes, because I think it was more around there was a Netflix series. I don't know if you saw it, where this doctor was donating his own sperm, but the people didn't know it. And
oh God,
I remember
he had
the
all of
story.
these kids. So like when you're putting yourself on 23andMe and a couple of brothers came up that I didn't know about, like you're opening Pandora's box here. Like this
absolutely.
relationship might not have been a marital, likely not, since the father is not listed on the birth certificate. So what can of worms am I opening up by saying I exist, folks, and I'm related to you, but yet we don't have the same parents? It's so yes, without a doubt. So I guess I was a bit selfish about that. I'm like, yeah, not enough trepidation, so I did it anyway. But
it sounded like the
yes,
impetus was about like health concerns, though. Like you need to know like your genetic makeup to understand, what might be coming down the pipe. It's all about prediction. Once again, back to some sort of like people analytics.
Oh, absolutely. And we found a lot of the family died of heart disease. My sister, my birth sister was cancer, but she was a smoker. She had lung cancer. So you could tie that in to a degree. Most of it was heart disease. And I'm like, great. I started when my friend passed away, I started eating healthy. I started riding my bike, Peloton. I started really thinking about my health. And now this is just health. So absolutely. I think that was my original plan wasn't a discovery of the parents. That kind of was an adjacent piece of it.
Well, does 23andMe have a mini-chlorians test yet? Like, can you see if you're part Jedi? Like, is that a thing?
Yeah, Yeah, that would be really cool. That
That was the
I
worst
would
part
love
of
that.
Star Wars, man. That was the worst part of Star Wars. It
The
was
midi
brought up
chlorian.
once in a random conversation in episode 1 and never
Right,
talked
right.
about ever again.
And
Oh
yet it's
god.
the foundation of the entire like possibility of it. But it was like, yeah, this midi chlorian things. Let's
Yeah.
move on. Yeah.
Never again. Well, you mentioned you're doing some exercise like biking and stuff. Are you a big biker?
I am. I became a big biker in COVID. There was nothing else. I don't love going to gyms. I don't like that environment. And
Yeah.
what I found with biking, it was a solo effort. It was outdoors, and I would be able to throw on these AirPods and listen to directionally, correct on my ride. So I
Don't
was
you
like,
flatter us.
I was, and the Pivot podcast, just to be very clear, like I'm a big fan of the Pivot podcast. But it allowed me to do audiobooks. I would listen to audiobooks. So yeah, I became mostly on the streets where I live in Staten Island. It's pretty on the what we call the South Shore of Staten Island. It's really good places to ride on the street. It's not very dangerous. They have bike lanes, and so I do about 15 miles a day when it's not as cold as it is today. Otherwise, it's Peloton.
Staten Island, that's where the vampires from What We Do in the Shadows live.
I've never seen the show, but yes, someone, and also Pete Davidson. So our claim to fame on Staten
Yes, the
Island,
king of Staten Island.
it's Pete Davidson, pizza, and Wu-Tang Clan. So those are the three things I hold
Not
dear. Yeah.
not bad
And
company at
it's
all.
not bad at all. Right. That's what I said. I'm like,
So
Yeah.
those
that's
are
a pretty
pretty good
good like
things.
cocktail party, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It does. I mean, there is some, it seems to be a lot of Trumpian things going on around here. So, but anyway, yeah, it's interesting.
Well, hey Scott, do we have a confusion matrix for Anthony today?
We do.
The confusion matrix.
You would try something new, Anthony? We'll
Let's
do.
do it.
It's called super random. This is probably tells you more about me than you, but it's like just random things I thought about this week, and I'll ask you. Maybe we get through one, maybe we'll get through 10. I don't know.
Sounds good.
But
Let's do it.
first question: is it okay to tell someone that they were boring you? Like in a conversation, like, oh man, you're just boring me.
We preach a radical candor framework here at Susie. So professionally, probably you'd have to toe the line there. Personally, absolutely. Well, I'm from New York, so we're pretty straightforward.
Like you'd want someone to tell you like if like a bird shit on your shoulder, right? Or like oh, I'm sorry, I gotta pee, I gotta go to the restroom, like something's going on.
Right.
But you tell someone that they're boring you, that's an affront. And I think that this like it's because like the dynamic is in place where they are trying to impart some sort of wisdom to you, and
Right.
it's a waste of your time. So there's like
I think
a
if you
head butting
keep it
going
to
on.
the like you're boring me versus you're boring, I think it might be a little bit easier.
There's an
Like just
unfixable
because the
problem,
topic you're
i.e.,
talking
you.
about. Right. It's the topic you're talking about and how you're presenting it, but it's nothing about you.
I see Cole smiling over here and being quiet.
Yeah, I'm just gonna not wade into this one.
I think there are moments. I think if the problem is my wife is really good with small talk. I am terrible at it as HR person. I'm terrible at small talk. So if I'm bored, you see it on my face. So if I'm seeing it on my face, maybe I can get out of that conversation. I don't know. It maybe listen. Let's change topics. Is maybe a little bit more finesse around it.
There's nothing like talking to someone and they're like, "Oh no, I'm really interested." It's like, well, tell it to your fucking face because your face is telling a whole different story.
Yeah, you were gone. Yeah, I've so many entrepreneurs that I've worked with that I'm talking to them, and they're like, I'm like, are you even paying attention right now? So,
Yeah.
Let's go on. Let's move on to the nerdery. I think we've
All right. Let's do
exhausted
some
that.
nerdery. The nerdery. Do you want to start with the latent activity one, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes the methods are perhaps more impressive than the actual results of this sort of thing. But this is identifying latent activity behaviors using mobility data. So essentially, they're using cell phone data to analyze people's habits in a city. So in cities, most of the data comes from census data or surveys, which are infrequently collected. We very analogous to what we do in organizations. So we have like flat file demographic information on people, as well as like their sort of employee sentiment. So what these folks did is they analyzed mobility data of 1.2 million users in 11 cities and identified 12 distinct latent categories of behaviors that people engage in that relate to their overall lifestyle. So instead of categorizing people based on their groups, such as like high income or these are our people of color or what have you, they identified a consistent pattern of these behaviors can be different levels of these 12 different behaviors which relate to someone's lifestyle. So as
Hmm.
opposed to describing people by who they are, it's what they do. And it's a nuanced way to analyze people data and target high risk behaviors, and it gets to the interconnected nature between what we do and our overall outcomes. I thought it was really interesting.
It was fascinating,
Yeah.
and I just wondered, is one of those 12 hipster lifestyle?
Okay, I didn't get into that.
Oh,
So like
absolutely.
it kind of hit on hipster lifestyle. So it's like working, food, entertainment, shopping. One of them's coffee shops. So I mean, you're like hovering around sort of hipster territory. Definitely.
Interesting. Yeah, this is the segment of Upper East Side activity, and but Botox visits. Anyway, so it's interesting. Like there is, so Susie's a market research platform, and we actually there was a book called Everyone Lies. I don't know if you've read it. The idea
No.
was in survey data when someone answers a survey tool, they're perpetuating what they think about themselves, but not actually. So this
Yeah.
kind of information, like this is where they explored O&A, and we're still exploring O&A. I call it digital breadcrumbs. I think you can tell the sentiment or what someone's doing in your organization if you can track their digital breadcrumbs, right? Well, who are they connecting to, and what
Yeah.
systems they're in. So I think there's a lot. And so anyway, we did a segmentation drivers analysis at Suzy where we did surveying, but then we put through like a k-means clustering analysis of perceived versus actual. And we did a whole segmentation analysis on our panel, which is US consumers, but focused it, instead of doing consumer type work, we did employee or work type of questions. And we got to a couple of personas that are statistically relevant, like almost to a degree of, I forget what the number was, but pretty predictable degree that based on what they call a typing tool. So you answer a bunch of questions, we can actually figure out your persona. I love this stuff. Like to me, what can
Yeah.
you derive from this activity, this mobile activity, versus again where this Everybody Lies book goes into, where it's like I'm answering a question, but I'm answering it based on what I perceive myself to be, but not actually. What he talked about was Google searches. You can learn more about a person by their Google searches than through their surveying, because they're Google searching what's interesting, what the activity, that kind of stuff. So I think this is a really interesting thing. It gets into so much privacy stuff
Oh
that
yeah.
we can talk about, but I think it's an interesting way to look at organizations or people in general.
I think it's a more egalitarian way to look at folks too, right? You look at what the actual behaviors they engage in, as opposed to lumping them into a group, and then predict outcomes based on that. It's a way to get to like say diversity of opinion or thought in a different sort of way than we typically think. So like in organizations, you'll say we need to have a balance of say like people of color and say whites. Well, all the people of color you hire are from like Harvard. It's like how different are they in how they think really from the people you already have?
Right.
Probably not that much really. But if you had different sort of ways of approaching the world based on the way they're actually acting, that may give you some like unique information or unique perspectives.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because what you're talking about is the check the box diversity, which
Yes.
everyone plays in. Where what you're talking about and what we've tried, particularly at Susie, is we looked at traditionally black, historically black colleges. We've looked at community or sort of city or state schools to find diverse in terms of ethnicity, but also experience. And that's what you're talking about, right? The idea of bringing someone in that has not experienced the world that you have in the
Hmm.
way that you've experienced it. It could be really interesting, like zip codes or mobility or what they're. I think this is the power of getting data. There's a really interesting company called Revlio Labs, started by Ben. I forget his last name, but
Way.
they're looking at public people data in not in this way, not because they're not looking at mobility, but they're coming out with this kind of stuff. Like, this is the interesting stuff. Like, this is the fun. This is where I geek out, where it's like, oh, maybe if we did this in a certain way or looked at the world in this way, we can actually create impact around diversity that actually impacts business results. So
It has high predictive power too. It's Sandy Pentland at MIT. You mentioned MIT earlier. He coins this social physics, and essentially they can take cell phone data and predict future illness based on the pattern 3 to 4 days before they actually get ill. So they start engaging in these, like, going to sleep earlier, don't go out with their friends, or these sort of predictable patterns. And if you could do this on a massive scale, organization or a city in this case, you could predict a pandemic coming. You could predict, just sort of
hmm.
shifts, and hopefully get ahead of that in some sort of way, provide resources or guidance or what have you.
Yeah, I think this
Yeah, it
is
sounds like the
fascinating in like the social sciences. Kind of back to the point about surveys earlier. Surveys are just what people say,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to know what people do. Like,
Yeah.
what are their behaviors? And I feel like that's an under researched area that what both of you are talking about is just fascinating. I remember I took this through one of a prior company I worked at. They had this quiz of like, how financially secure do you feel? Right. And so there was a mixture of survey items, but also behavioral items. And one of the questions I remember was like, how often do you check your bank account balance a day? And I was like, I don't know, maybe 150 times. Way too many times. And that really set off this scale that they're like, maybe you feel financially insecure. And I was like, wow, I'd never really thought about it that way. And so I think
yeah.
that there's a lot of implications of this type of kind of behavioral data.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be like, one of the things I liked about the research article that you found, Scott, is they talked about that they had anonymized all of this data, right? So it wasn't like they were going in and like tracking one individual human and classifying them into one of the 12 categories or something like that. Is there are ethical ways that you can go about doing this that aren't just incredibly creepy, incredibly big brother. And I think they could be helpful, again, to like to the point about illness, right? So
Yeah.
I would want to know
Definitely.
4 days before I get sick if I'm going to get sick, and if I could prevent it in some way, that would be amazing.
this
Right.
is this is almost exactly how like Apple or Google Maps works itself. Like, so you say, like, give me directions to the airport, and like you're on the route and it's like red. It's like it's a really big slowdown. That's because they have other users up the road that are going through that pain or went through that
Right.
pain, and it's giving you the signal that you can use to circumvent.
Yeah.
Same thing in
And there
organization.
was Yeah, same thing. I mean, Ben Waber, if you're familiar with Ben, founded a company, Humanize, and the whole premise there was in aggregate pulling what I call digital breadcrumbs within the workforce.
Yeah,
So the activities, not there was no survey, and I guess it's what is it, active data or passive data,
passive
where
data.
you're looking at all these different activities across your organization. So it pulls from email, it pulls from Slack, it's pulling from all these things, and they could predict, to a degree, turnover. They don't look at tone of emails. They just look at the metadata pieces of it, similar to ONA. But like, they would be able to look at, like, and it's so funny because like, we all have assumptions about how our organizations work, but getting this type of information of activity would be really interesting in a dashboard to go like, oh, I can almost see it like, this like interactive thing where like a whole bunch of people are here and it's like, what's happening over there? It's like, oh, that's the engineering offsite thing or whatever. Like I think there could be really, not that we're spying on, like I think
Well, why
it's
are they so engaged
like,
right now?
yeah. Why are all the engineers talking to each other? That's not what they know. Um,
But I think
so
this is the
anyway, it's
future. Like
interesting.
like you say, like incorporating more data sources beyond just like survey data, which that has a latency to it. I mean, it takes 2 weeks to put a survey out. Maybe some people take it, maybe some don't. It takes 2 to 3 weeks to analyze it. Then you push it back out. Now that data is at least a month old before it gets back into people's hands, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what the other thing I've been thinking about a lot is we send out a lot of communications in HR. Like, is it being read or not? And is it
Yeah.
in the place where people are sitting right now? It's Slack and email, but is that the right? Should I do more Slack or less Slack? Like, how do I get the best bang for that communication dollar, or post? And then I'm on a session, and people are like, oh, I didn't know we were doing this. I'm like, did you not get my 20 Slacks, my 20 emails, the
This is a
the the
conversation that
the
Cole and I have.
mailing, the mailing I just sent to you? I sent a telegram, singing telegram to your house. So it's just, I think it'd be interesting to really look at that organizationally. But
Yeah. I hate to
This-
break it to you, Anthony. The answer is no. They didn't get any of
yeah.
those things.
Well, Axios actually put out a report on this because they have like an internal communication tool companies can license, and they say the best time is 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning to send a company-wide email. I'm like, okay, it feels
Fair
wrong.
enough.
It doesn't feel intuitive, but maybe that is the answer. So we started doing that. Here, we're going to send it at 4 a.m. I don't know. There's no way to track it, so it's hard to really figure out if people are actually seeing it.
have your autonomous agent talk to my autonomous agent, and we'll just have the autonomous agent fill out my engagement survey, and we'll all be
Exactly.
happy.
Yeah.
Create
Or
a
they could fill
GPT
out
of
your,
yourself,
or the autonomous agent could fill out your time tracking sheet for you, perhaps.
right? It's
You
a
want
real
that?
problem. So to just adjacent to that, we're at Suzy, so we're a market research company. We also have our own panel. So if you're familiar, typically you're the tech, and then you have to go out to a third party to get all the people to answer. We have our own panel, so we have like end-to-end control, like an Apple-esque kind of way. And one of the biggest things is we have to fight off AI because someone can create a chatbot that answers the survey questions. Then they're getting points,
Yeah.
and then they're putting in those points for gift cards. So we're actually working on something called Biotic, which is basically really a defender against AI in the market research space. So what you're talking about is it's not fantasy. Like people can actually create these things and to act in these ways. It's a big thing in general in the market research space. There's quality is an issue. It's been an issue in market research, but that's only because when you're the technology, you're not controlling the audience. And if you're the audience, you just want to sell more audience. So for us, because we have end-to-end control, our quality is 3 or 4 times better than a normal, market research firm. Now we're even adding in this AI, this biotic tool that, because the other reason is not even, it's less sophisticated. You just have someone hitting yes, 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 yes on a survey
Yeah.
to get points. And so we have to track that activity. So it's one of our we call it Blackbird, one of our innovation hub things that we're working on that we're in beta now, but we're launching in I think January, and it's going to be a big thing in the market research space.
In a less sophisticated way for internal people analytics. An IO named Richard, I think he went to NC State, but he developed a package for R called Careless. So it's identifying survey responses that don't meet specific criteria around variability. So if you answer all one to a survey, all five to a survey,
Right.
or like do like a little diagonal, it's in there for anyone that wants to nerd out and does any sort of survey research, boot out bad responses.
Yeah,
See?
exactly. There's a function in there where it's like you have to actually read the question and answer, like put number 5. That's a way to get around sort of that 11112, but still it's not a perfect science.
It's a problem in IO too. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of our data is based off of these sort of like paid sites where you go to and people will respond to your surveys for, a nickel or a quarter or something like that. Bots all over the place, and what does it do on the outcome? Like you're feeling it in market research, we're feeling it in theory development, and trying to reinforce the studies that we're trying to gauge in. And I think it's just going to get worse unless you've found some sort of like magic bullet for AI combating AI, essentially.
We
Yeah,
might.
it's got to get worse. I feel like because if there's the incentive for people to want to game something, like just to use the example from the careless package you mentioned, Scott,
Yeah.
it's like doing all of that manually of trying to comb through your survey data to see if it's, you know, got some kind of corrupted data in it. It's terrible. It sucks. It's very menial. And I've been looking forward to for years for a time for AI to come in and automate a lot of those menial tasks that I don't have to do again. So as long as there is an incentive there, people are going to try to game it, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to install technology because again, we own what's happening with you folks is that you don't own the audience on the IO side, right? It's just this general audience. We have and we own the audience part of it. We can install technology to not only before it even gets into the survey, like, oh, you're doing these, first, I call it like a club. We have the bouncer and we have to make sure you're human. That's the first element
Yeah.
of making sure that there are no bots. But then it's like the bouncer walking around the club to make sure you're not doing it. Like that is the key. That's what we're working on is a solution to combat that, which is both AI. So how do we figure out what is a bot, what is a human? And then once it's human, are you not just answering questions to answer questions? So we have, I believe, and the person working on it is brilliant. I think we have the solution, and we'll see if it's in code and it's in our platform because idea to execution is always hard, but I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
I'd love to pick your brain sometime about the sophistication of this sort of stuff. I mean, that's absolutely wonderful. It's a unique challenge, I imagine, that you're facing because I'm like on the
Yeah,
back end, like you got to produce some. It's there's several things that just kind of boil down to garbage in, garbage out, and this is one of them, right?
absolutely. And that's why we're like garbage out before you even get a report. Like, because typically you would clean it up when reporting happens. You're like, oh, this doesn't look right. Get rid of that answer, get rid of that
Yeah.
person's response. Where we're saying, okay, we're going to kick you out of the club before the results even get to you. Which, what it does do in the survey world is it does increase the time to completion on that survey if you're kicking people out constantly, but it is an unknown thing or undisclosed thing in market research where some companies accept that level of quality issue. They're like, yeah, because
Well, I
they
mean, like,
won't
what
be
are you
able
gonna
to
do? I
deliver.
mean, we got to
Yeah,
produce something on the back end, even if the results
yeah.
aren't perfect. In fairness, in college, I never made it into the club. So I think I
No.
never wore the right shiny shirt, as it were.
Is that what it took to get into the club? The shiny
I
shirt?
don't know.
Yes, a
I
black
hated going to
shiny
club.
shirt was pretty key. You go into clubs in
uh,
New York, it was yeah, you had to know someone to get in, and or drop 100 or something. So
what was the hottest club back in the day, Anthony?
oh, it was the Palladium. The one the Limelight was really when I was younger big. It was a church converted into a house techno club, and so it was the Limelight, it was the Palladium, and then Club USA was a big one. They actually had a slide. They had a slide in
A
that one. So,
slide.
yeah, yeah. You saw a lot of things there, and I think COVID probably originated in those clubs.
It sounds like you knew somebody, Anthony. It sounded like you were in these clubs. You were in the scene,
I,
man.
I was. I always in New York. I got a guy is a big thing. So I
You
have
got
a
a guy.
guy that knows people. So yeah, I was always able to get in.
I always wanted to be that guy, but I never was.
I'm never that guy. I don't know.
I
No
think
one
you
comes to
are
me and
that
says,
guy.
"Hey, can you get me in?" No, I got a guy.
Yeah,
I think Cole is that guy. He knows everybody in the
I
space,
don't
True.
right?
know.
Great
Yeah.
connection, by the way. I spoke to one of your connections, Deborah, yesterday. I'm really excited about the work they're doing.
Oh, fantastic. Deborah's great.
Yeah,
I forgot I
yeah.
even made the connection. That's good.
You did great. I said to her, I said, spot on, spot like I told you what I was trying to do, and she's doing what I'm trying to do. So it was perfect. Who needs
Very good.
AI? We have Cole. We need Cole AI.
He's a massive node in the network.
I'm really hopeful that there won't be an AI coming out named Cole, because that's going to make my life really confusing. That would be terrible. I don't know,
You mean
Scott. Do you,
or a Cole?
yeah. Scott, do you have time for more nerdery, or
Yeah.
do
We
you?
can go. You can either do one or two, whatever you want to do.
Okay. Let me try. Let me bring up this.
I'm on
Since we're kind
PTO,
of pressed for
Anthony,
time,
so I
let's
can
talk
do
about
whatever I
time
want.
tracking.
Time tracking. Okay,
Yeah.
this
The
is a
exciting
tweet.
topic of time tracking.
Yeah.
Well, we're here to shit on it. So.
This is
All right, good.
from our buddy Santiago. We borrow from him quite a bit, and the essential post is him lamenting the use of time tracking by managers to, I don't know, foment productivity. With the idea being that like these things like Jira boards, etc., as opposed to focusing on actual production, they tend to become focused on the tracking numbers and getting people to enter the numbers, and then the incentives obviously cascade from there. I tend to agree with this. I've every time I've been asked to like input numbers, it's never about the actual product anymore, but about putting those numbers on the board and making sure you got your TPS report updated, this sort of thing.
Yeah, it just seems fundamentally just a God. It's just the worst. I don't know how else to say it. It's like it's work for the sake of work for
Thanks for that
somebody else
It
insight,
to
is.
Cole.
feel like a sense of control where they don't have any control, right? And it's I don't know. I just have very negative reactions to this.
Yeah. It's the oldest thing in time, though, right? Like tracking. If you think about the oldest business in the world, it's paying people by the hour. So it kind of is in the fabric of what we do. I have a bunch of stories. When I worked at Fresh Direct, when we first started, the CFO was obsessed with all the our salaried people punching in and punching out until I told him that it could be potentially a violation of FSLA rules and other things. So it's been
Well, what
it's
do you
been
mean?
one
Like
of those
them leaving
things.
early, like not putting in full 40 hours?
Yeah, like, hey, you're not pulling in full 40 hours of time, or if we're tracking and they're not overtime, is their position in the right? Like, it was
Yeah.
just without any consideration of the role or the responsibilities, or even how this is. I joined, we were about 40 employees, and he was doing this. Eventually went away, like within a month or two, when I told him that it's not a good idea to do it. But it's just interesting to see that kind of stuff happening in that way. And then, like you said, there was a friend of mine being, in Staten Island. I know a lot of folks in law enforcement and fire departments, big here in
You got a
this
guy.
borough. I got a guy even on that side,
Yeah.
and so he was working with the chief of police. He was a first lieutenant, and he was responsible for what they call ComStat. If you're not familiar, they would have to report the criminal activities of every different region in New York. So murders and burger, like, started getting data obsessed with these things. This is believe me, this is a story you want to hear, and it's very relevant. So they started reporting these things, and obviously you can imagine when they started reporting these things like murders and all this sort of thing, they were somewhat incentivized to make sure that, just naturally, like, let's make sure these things don't happen. Like, if we can prevent these things. So what was happening is they were now being measured on their success on these ComStat sessions. And this is an idea of what was it, the Cobra analysis years ago. I don't know if you know the Cobra story. I could tell that one. But so what was happening is cops, when a murder would happen in a place where it was very close to the line of another precinct, this happened, by the way, they'd move the body. So the murder wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost Disney-esque.
What?
We have had no one die at Disney because we take you off of Disney property and then you die. They would do this thing. I don't know how prolific it was, but having connections in here, it's a perfect example of the time. I mean, it's a really awful example of the timesheet thing. But instead of looking at the intent of these things, you're now moving metrics to make it be perceived a little bit better.
Exactly like a Jira board. Like, you say it's going to take you 40 hours. Well, if it took you 30 hours, we got to find 10 more hours somewhere else, or
Right.
vice versa. It took you 50 hours. It's going to take away from something else.
10 of those hours were moving the dead body from one precinct to the other.
Right. Yeah. And this is the Cobra analogy is, I think it was in India under Great Britain rule, they had a Cobra outbreak. And it's always in like the
as
analytics.
it happens, you know.
Of course, you know, every day, like, you know, happens on Staten Island, Cobras just break out. And so they started rewarding people for bringing Cobras in. Like they wanted to get removed. The goal was reduce the amount of Cobras that were on the streets. But you can imagine what people did. They started farming Cobras.
Yeah.
So they were bringing Cobras by the hundreds, and they're like, where are all these Cobras coming from? Then they stopped rewarding people, and you can predict what happened. They released the Cobras. So they, in fact, got more Cobras on the streets than they had before because they had the wrong incentives in place, right? So this like timesheet is a great example of people analytics and kind of you got to make sure that you're looking at these things in the right way.
Good old Goodhart's law. Can't escape it. No.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of like tie things back together. Back with the mobility data, you were talking about like preventing murders. Like one thing that cops found a long time ago in Dallas is that no crimes really occurred during Cowboys games. All these people were inside, like watching the Cowboys. So
fascinating.
No real crime happening. Cops that go to the fire stations and stuff.
Other than in the stadium. Per se, but that's a knock on.
NFL stadiums are violent places, yes.
More on the football field, but that's a Cowboy.
Oh, okay, well that too. I was really referring to the stands.
Like there's a more than possible chance that Anthony's a Giants fan. So.
I'm a New York fan. I feel bad for the Jets and watch the Giants. So, but the Giants aren't doing much better. Dallas is obviously doing a lot better this year.
Yeah.
Overall, the idea of Jira boards and this sort of thing, it makes sense. It like sort of push people towards an outcome, but when you have incentives that cascade through them, things actually change. Behaviors actually change.
Yeah, and we're seeing the same thing. We're trying to really look at. So part of our solution at Suzy is that there's a managed, because it's market research. It's not like Slack where it's very simple, right? There's really not a lot of CS, customer service, or managed services hours in a Slack engagement. You sell it, people, it's kind of intuitive. Market research is very different. It's very complex. So sometimes our clients want market research expertise aside our software. We're trying to really get to a point where we can operationalize a lot of that managed services, and timesheets are an element of that. And what we're finding is, we worked with the team. We said, okay, this is what we want to put into, we're using something called Smart Sheets, not Jira. Jira wasn't really helpful from a reporting perspective.
Yeah.
But now they're not filling them out. And we're like, wait, we worked with this on you. And like, so getting people just to fill them out. And I remember from my days with Razorfish, if you didn't fill out your timesheet, they would lock down your email. Like Friday, if it wasn't in by Monday you'd come in, you're like, why don't I have emails? More. Yeah, like they were like, why am I getting emails? They're like, you didn't fill out your timesheet. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. So motivating factor, I guess.
But again, don't listen to what people say they do. Listen to what they do. And a timesheet is the exact opposite of that. So, yeah.
What's the solution?
What's up?
What's the solution? Like, you still need to track time. Like, what is?
It depends. It depends on a lot of things. I think tracking time is the easiest thing you can do, right? Anthony showed up at 8 a.m. He left at 5 p.m. We'll put him down for whatever. Then, of course, like you get the human element of that, of like the incentives become like, well, if you're paying me for time, what you're going to get is time, you know. But how do you monitor a workforce while ensuring that they are productive, have clear goals, have clear standards, and provide the autonomy to do it, I suppose. Like if someone wants to go out to lunch on a Friday, then that's fine. You know, if you can get done what you're expected to, your obligations are to get done. I think that's where to start, really.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many factors there.
Like a call center worker cannot just be like, well, I made a great customer case. I'm going to get out of here because you need someone to man the phones, right? You need someone's time at that place. But then they got other factors of like how long you spent with that customer and these sort of other time tracking things that are.
Yeah. So I'm bored with this conversation. So
Yeah, moving on.
Yeah.
I wanted to wrap it all in from the very beginning.
No, that's some radical candor there, Anthony. Well, maybe we'll just wrap this whole thing up. So, Anthony, you have been fantastic. There's been a lot of really good stuff that we've covered today. Scott, any final words for Anthony before we wrap this up?
Anthony, a pleasure to meet you. I can't wait to see what's coming down the pipe from an AI perspective, and Susie, definitely.
Absolutely.
Same here. Thanks for having me. Fun discussion. Really enjoyed it. Hour went super quick.
Well, you've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with Colin Scott and Anthony Onesto. Thanks for joining us, Anthony.
Thank you.
All opinions are our own and do not reflect those of any other organization. You've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with Colin Scott.